I disordinati. Una storia di persone tutte diverse eppure ugualissime, perché a chi di noi non è capitato di sentirsi fuori dall'ordinario, a chi di noi la vita non ha regalato un po' di disordine. I disordinati è un podcast sulle scelte, caratteristiche e condizioni che, in un modo o nell'altro, in un mondo o nell'altro, ci hanno cambiato, a noi che invece pensavamo di restare sempre così, disordinati.
Welcome back to the podcast of The Disordinati. Benvenuti e ritrovati nel podcast dei Disordinati. Questo è il nostro episodio in inglese. This is our third, I believe, episode in English. I'm here with Maurice. Hi, Maurice.
Hi, Chiara.
So, Maurice and I met in 2020, and we met actually online through a church group. And so it's a connection that started during the pandemic, and this was a group, one of our common friends. He created this group, and it was about discussing and sometimes even questioning religious texts. And we've sort of shared our journeys of thoughts and what we wanted from life. And it became immediately evident that we were very similar and that we were able to discuss topics following each other's thoughts. And one thing that we have in common for sure is that both want to do something as long as it makes sense to us. And so today we're talking about changing careers in our 30s. And there is always this quote that I think about when I think about me, but also when I think about your journey, which is the Oscar Wilde quote. I don't know who shared it first, but the idea is that, he says, lucky those who, don't know what they are. If they can be, one day they want to be like lawyers, one day they want to be doctors, one day they want to be artists. And so let's start with this, because so we're both in our 30s, and then you decided to say, like, how they say in Good Life, the series, like, fork it, I'm going to change everything. And you left a very stable job and you decided to make a big decision. So today you work in an international organization, which we won't say because, privacy. But can you tell us a bit about your past life, like your studies and the first jobs, and also the job that then you ended up quitting?
I think I've always wasn't too afraid to make a big change, let me say that to start with. I'm an aerospace engineer by training and always been interested in many different topics, not only technology side, but innovation, economics, global geopolitics, very exciting. And that's why immediately after my graduation, I decided to move to China. And I just wanted to get my own perspective of what was going on in like a new up and coming society. And that was around 2014. Right now, geopolitical situation is very different.
Yes.
Here, if I would make the same decision, but at that point in time, that was very exciting. So I lived there for a couple of years. I learned a lot about like a very enriching life experience on how different societies work. Then I decided to make a more career move, go back to engineering, do the groundworks, as I call it. And that's where the path starts, right? To figure out, to search what you really want to do. Because like you choose your studies, and then for 4, 5, 6 years, you're good to go. You just need to continue. But then when you graduate, you need to know all of a sudden what you need to do. And that's where I started. It's not that I had no clue, but it's really a journey. So I did engineering in aviation, mobility, more on the technical consulting. So I did many projects in many different companies, startups, scale-ups, government. And that's where I started figuring out, okay, what I like, what I don't like. And eventually I started figuring out, okay, I want to be more on the forefront where things are really changing. So I decided to focus on sustainable mobility, sustainable transitions, where you have many big technologies, many big economic and finance questions. And it also meant I had to basically upskill myself. So I did an MBA. And during the MBA, I just thought, like, you know what, I've got all these skills. Let me try to really make a change. So I started my own startup initiative.
You did it all basically, and it seems like you did it in 1 year, like so fast. But what did you like? When did you realize that this was something that what you were doing before was something that didn't align with you anymore, and also what were the steps you took to sort of leave that phase of your life behind?
I think it just easily comes together because you feel it. You feel frustration in what you're doing. And yeah, of course, there's always things you don't like in your job. But if for a long time you go to your work and you're like, what I'm doing here, and especially when you're young, you should not have that feeling too long. So, I mean, like, I started figuring it out, but I also decided, like, I can't leave until I know what I really want to do.
There are a lot of people who actually continue working in a job and they feel stuck, but they still stay in a way. But you made the decision to actually be active and change your path. Were there key people that supported you in this? And also the opposite way, like, did you feel and did you face judgment from peers or family when you said, okay, you know what, I'm going to leave my very stable job in the Netherlands, where I already own my house, and I'm going to go back to education and then change everything? And, you know, it's a very risky decision.
I never really faced like a lot of backlash, or maybe I ignored it. I don't know. But I was quite strong-willed, and I always had the support from my family. So I knew, like, of course, my family, they asked me, right, like, are you sure about this? What else can you do? And like, especially because my decisions involved moving again to the other side of the world to do a degree. My family were more worried about me being so far away than making a change.
There's something that drives you back to Asia one way or the other, which is very interesting. And you went back to education, and that's also a big step, going back to education with all the awareness that you have as a professional. So how was it also in terms of lifestyles, you know, because you go from living in your flat and then moving abroad once again, and several times, because it was an international program, so it was not just moving abroad once, but you changed countries within a very short amount of time. And then back, you know, to sharing apartments with other people.
I think that part is actually very exciting, right? If you're, look, I wasn't held back by a relationship, so that helps. If you have a relationship, choices are harder. You have to make compromises. But on my end, that was the easier part. And like, it was a degree for 1 year, and that was more exciting because so many new things are happening. You'll meet so many new people. So that part for me was like very easy to make that decision. The decision afterward, that's harder to, like, where do you transition to? Where do you live then? Yeah, that was hard.
But it was overall, you enjoyed sort of going back to a youthful time. It's also beautiful in a way because it reaffirms the idea that education has no age, and you can go in and go back in and out of education however you feel like it. And if an opportunity comes up, then, and you're in your 30s and you want to go back to education, why not? And so it sounds very exciting. But then how did you feel when you actually came back home and you realized that you made some choices? And actually, when was the moment of realization, you know, when the distraction of studying abroad, being with other students, being with friends, being out, having people around stopped?
Let me take one step back. Like, if you go back to education, you can study indeed at all phases of life, but I think it does need to make sense. Like, if you make a full-time decision, it needs to make sense to your next step. You have to have some sort of strategy. Otherwise, part-time solutions are more advisable. But it was really like, yeah, you go from like such a high-paced environment where you meet so many people, everything is exciting, and you have no time to really think too much about what is the next step. And then all of a sudden, that step arrives, and then you basically fell into an emptiness. And I felt on my end that, like, I could have, like, thought more carefully about that step. That made my next step hard because I decided to do a startup, take a very, very high risk project, start it from scratch. Apparently, it was my journey, but maybe I could also have had another path. I mean, there were many other options possible at the time. But I think partly my ambition to try something, but partially also like how quickly that changed. Well, I was like, okay, let me just focus on this startup thing because I can do it straight away. I don't need to think too carefully about what's my next step.
Do you think that being in your 30s in this case was because you said that you were, you had both sides. On the one hand, it was okay for you to take risky decisions, and on the other hand, you were rethinking what you had decided to do. Do you think that because 30 is a sort of weird time of our life, now everything is delayed, having a family, having a stable job, buying a house, but still you think about these things. And I wonder if, this age, like being 30 in your 30s, if it affected you with, a double, how do you call it? A doppia spada. Like on the one hand, you feel like you have the responsibility of being mature and, making very wise decisions because now it's adulthood has really started. And on the other hand, you know that you're in your 30s. So actually, it's fine and it's the right moment to make this type of decisions.
Yeah, I feel the big question is always like, how much risk are you willing to take to fail? And like, do you accept that failure is part of the journey? At that point in time, I was kind of comparing myself to my peers who were all graduating and went to these amazing companies and have like very busy lives, but very stable lives straight away. And I took very high risk with uncertainty of where it would go, where it would end. And that was more of the impact that was like occupying my mind at the time.
I understand what you say. And when I left my job, I feel like it was the hardest year of my life, probably, but then it transformed in the most beautiful life that was for me because we are used to looking at others' choices as, the standard ones that we have to compare ourselves to. But I don't know about you, but I never felt comfortable doing it. I always wanted to do my own thing and it had to make sense to me.
I think that's very similar. Like what you said in your introduction is very true. Like I think both of us are very focused on like having some sort of meaning in what we do instead of just doing something so we can live life. Just the approach that we have. I found it very interesting. I had quite a few chats with all my classmates, and some worked in at all the top companies that everyone knows, and they're so busy. And then we had a talk about like the projects that we're doing, and some were related to the same topic. And then it was always very funny that like I was thinking, man, I wish I had a stable life. And when they talk to me, they always wanted to know like, man, like the topics that you think about are so exciting and they're brave for taking the risk. And so like, I guess the grass is always greener on the other side as well.
Yeah, it's always greener on the other side because it's the same a bit with people who have children and people who don't, and then they say, "Oh, so nice to have children," and then the people who have just made babies said, "Okay, I miss having my free time," and so it's true that you always want something that you don't have, but at the same time, I do think that you can have that as well. Like it's the risk to take to a life that you choose for yourself, and no one else. In a way, you're responsible for your own happiness.
Yeah.
And that the happiness comes also with sadness and frustration and going through the storm of challenging times in a way. And talking about challenging times, you didn't go from like one pink cloud to the other one. You experienced a transition phase yourself, and it took a lot of time and also mindfulness in a way to then land, a job that you love and where you feel like you're aligned with what you do. So, how did you go through this experience?
So at some point in time, I decided my startup is not going as quickly as I want. And basically, I always told myself, okay, I give myself 1.5 years and then I really have to make a decision. So it's very easy to when you take higher risk and it's not working, that you take bigger risk. And I was like, okay, I should not do that. I need to limit it at some point. So I did that. And at that point, I was like, okay, financially starting to get tough. And when financial stuff is starting to come to a struggle, then your mindset is shifting because like then your higher risk is basically going to like survival mode. and then you make different decisions. But in that phase, I was very clear. I was like, I don't just want to take a job so I have a job, because like finding a job is tough anyhow, and the market was really tough at this point. So I started to at least tell myself it may take some time, but I do want to really focus on something that I wanted to do. And I mean, emotionally, it was just a tough time. So I told myself, okay, it's gonna be a tough time, but only I am the one who can change it. So that's life.
Very pragmatic approach. I don't know if it's typical Dutch or just typical Maurice. Um, but what I wanted to say is also that in a way, yes, we go through tough times, but with also the awareness that you had left the job that you had left because you didn't want to have a job just to have a job, and so it made sense also to wait and wait.
Yeah.
What did you learn, let's say, from the startup experience as well? Because in a way that was representative of your own ideas, your own identity, your own willingness to venture into something new and to feel a sort of maybe even internal transformation. Maybe it was that tool that you needed to go from one state to the other.
I think it just like, if you start something yourself, you take full responsibility for the idea, for bringing it outside. So I learned so many things about like how assertive I can be. I can be much quicker right now in starting idea instead of thinking about it for a long time and waiting. But now I'm like, oh, let me figure it out. Let me do it. Let me see. And yeah, at the same time, I also learned that I'm really not a marketing person. Like I figured out like my ideas are, I'm a thinker. I love thinking of new ideas, but it cost me so many time and energy, mostly energy, on writing LinkedIn messages and getting the idea out there. So a lot of respect for like all the entrepreneurs who have to do everything, and also the challenges that come with the things you have to do because you're alone and trying to figure it out. I think that understanding is very important. Like I still have a few friends who are doing the startup environment, but like you can just understand someone because you've been through the same phases in a different way, as compared to just, oh, I'm sorry, go on and support them.
And the people that you met during the MBA had actually a similar journey to you, right? Or, I mean, were you able to compare yourself to them in a good way, in the sense that you were all there for the same reason, because you wanted to upskill yourself and then try to find something else? Or
The MBA brings together a whole bunch of people from very different backgrounds. But what unites everyone is that like you're all ambitious and that you want to make something of yourself, and you're excited about like new ideas and trying to understand the world. So, I mean, like most of the people in MBAs are like risk averse, because like they make a big investment and then will land a very stable job afterwards. And maybe when they're in their 40s, they'll start doing some entrepreneurial stuff. But most of them are risk averse. They go for like, okay, I want some certainty in life. I'm smart, etc. And there's a very small bunch who's like, you know what? I think differently.
wait now, let's do this
Yeah,
startup.
yeah. And like one guy was a consultant, like at one of the top consultancy companies, and after the MBA, he started a shrimp farming business in Vietnam, and he was from Romania, and he went through so many struggles. But like half a year ago, he has his first shrimp sail off, and he's making it. He's doing it.
Isn't this what happened in Forrest Gump, or am I remembering it not correctly?
I don't remember that part of the movie, but it could be. But I mean, that's cool experiences. So yeah, I can relate to
An
that.
unexpected outcome for.
Yeah.
But interesting that you say that people who do the MBA are actually risk averse, and because yes, in a way, I mean, you yourself, you had to put all your savings into this education because it's a big investment, and
Yeah.
so expect to receive, let's say, something back, and in a way, the keyword that we used a lot was change. Change in your 30s changing career, but what is change? Because change is also who we are, no, as people.
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, like,
Yes, we have another 3 hours just.
yeah.
But if you had to, think about what is change for you, because it's not just about making one decision, is it?
I think like it's a lot about like what it's like success is the way you define it, right? What I find important. Like in my MBA class, in a way I liked it, but there were a few people and they were saying, you know what? In 10 years, I want to be a CEO of a company or like a managing partner. They're just so honest about their ambition, right? Like it's what you want. You give up a lot of time and you have to do it. And other people, they just want like a stable life and want to enjoy their spare time, right? Like so success is the way you define it. And for me, like
Success in a personal sense. So success in, yes, getting basically what you want. But
yeah,
what if you don't know what you want?
what I heard sometimes is like if you don't know what you want, try something and make some steps from there. Jump in something that you are can work at least on for a while instead of saying too quickly, no, this is not it, and moving on. Like that's the thing I took. Like when I was in the technical consulting, I was like, okay, I studied for 5 years aerospace engineering and had a technical job in aerospace engineering. And like in my second project, I was like, I'm not excited about doing all of this stuff. What's wrong with me, right? How come I don't like what I'm doing? Instead of just leaving, I decided, okay, I need to figure out why I don't like it because I couldn't answer the question. And like I start figuring out, like my manager said, Maurice, you're some kind of a generalist. You like the higher level topics. You like, and then I started figuring out, like, am I really a generalist, or I want to know what I'm talking about, right? Like that was my thinking in the end. Like I like many topics, but I also like to be recognized for what I say adds value.
So the process, I mean, it really helped in a way having also the managers telling you something that you didn't agree with in the first place. Like, what was the process for you to, realize that, yeah, there was something wrong with you being there, not just the frustration, but what's the logistical process? Like, did you come home and sit on the desk and make a list of pros and cons, or did you talk to people at work that you could get
Yeah, yeah.
around?
I like in that period, I first decided to continue my job and try to find the excitement through different projects. But after a while, I was like, I think I just need to talk to a few people. Maybe I need to get like a mentor of some sort who can like advise me on this. So I tried all of the options. I did a course to figure it out somewhere. I talked to like some family members who were like 10, 20 years ahead of me in career and like learned about the steps that they made. And in the end, I was like figuring like, okay, to some extent, I think people know what they're excited about. Sometimes you don't realize it, but I think mostly people know, like in hindsight, you're like, oh, actually, I always knew I liked this, but it just took me a couple of years to figure it out that I like it. And I think that's the same with me. And maybe one thing also that helped me, like when I was going through like my job search phase, that was a bit of struggle. Like I had like a couple of job offers, but like I didn't take them because at some point it didn't feel good. And I had someone tell to me, and like it sounds so obvious maybe, but at that point in time I really needed to hear it. It's like, Maurice, like I've seen it before, like sometimes people that reject a job that's not really for them and keep searching something for that they want, they usually find something that is much better. And in my case, it turned out exactly like this. But like sometimes you need to like hear it from someone else.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're in this bubble and you cannot see
Yeah.
what is happening to you. And the same goes for relationships. When you're in a bad relationship, you often don't see it once you're in it. Um, but if there is a value that you learned during this whole process, what would it be?
That's a very good question. Like, I'm thinking right now out loud a little bit here.
Some new process of thinking that was not part of yourself before, or some new way of looking at the world. And
I think like some of the hardest thing is to be true to yourself, to be like, just be really honest with yourself. If you like something or if you don't like something, and about what and what you're excited about. And sometimes just you tell yourself for the wrong reasons that you like something, and that might not be good for you in the end. Yeah, you always have to make a balance of look, life is impacted by so many things in life. Like work is one really big thing. Like a lot of people take a lot of pride and joy from like a super high-end company or a brand name that they work for, and maybe they don't like the work actually. It's fine. I mean, like you can have a good life and you can enjoy the rest, but you have to make your decision yourself. So you have to be honest with yourself at some point in time. And so you have to accept like the risk that you take. If you take low risk, it's stable. If you take high risk, you have the ups, you have the downs as well, and that comes together. And like right now, I'm in trying to balance my high risk and my low risk projects in life.
but it's incredible how amazing one feels after making a decision, and as you were saying, being true to yourself and then seeing the result. It takes a lot of time, not only to see a practical result like a job, or whatever is that the person needs in that moment, but it's also about yourself, how you feel like when you do something that finally aligns with
Yeah,
what you desire, or and the desire might not have been evident. And as you were saying, it's also a knowledge process. You have to go through going back to education, you have to go through like talking to other people, and there are a lot of going through things to finally like see a sort of light. But the
yeah,
people who see the light, I mean, it's pretty awesome in a way.
yeah. I mean, like everyone will struggle in life in some way or another, and to some extent, that's good as well, right? Like you needed to realize like how important things are, like in my perspective, like what you just mentioned, like after you find something, and like you had the same thing in for yourself, right? After you find something that you like and you struggled a while to get it, that's a real achievement, and that's just for your own intrinsic motivation. Very, very good.
Maurice, thank you so much for sharing with everyone else this experience, your journey, and I wish you all the best with your new job and your new life.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking all these questions. All right, bye-bye.
And this is a quote that Maurice himself wrote, and that kind of captures the story of his journey so far. The road goes forever winding, no one can see its path, yet fortune favors the bold and change requires giving risk an opportunity, reminding us that the greatest risk is often staying the same.